welcome to the Laugh at Monkey Music Show. Today I've got John Robb. John, how are you?
Good, actually. On one of those rare days in Manchester, you can sit in the sunshine.
Um, you're very prolific, and as a person who enjoys creating stuff, I find it very inspiring. Um,
Yeah, you get bored, don't you? So you sort of fill in the gaps for more stuff.
do you feel like when I was looking at doing this interview, because I've interviewed, we were talking about the Beatles earlier. I mean, when you've had like, like the Beatles on, I've had Pete Best on, and it's all type of people on. One of the things I've really learned is I always have the conversations. It's definitely been less about music, sometimes more about people and how they get to where they're going. Music's always a journey, but the part of the creativity and the core of the people has really been so much more rewarding as an interviewer and whatever title bestowed upon you. Do you feel like that's probably like maybe one of the more inspiring parts of why you do stuff? Like you just um it kind of
Yeah,
pulls you in.
I think, well, obviously, like you, I'm really fascinated by music. So I play music and I have my bands and things. But I'm also fascinated by all other people. Where's the magic come from? Because I know it's like in a band quite often, it's just a load of people sat in a room trying to make some magic. I mean, you look at the Beatles get back, it was even like that for them. They're all looking
Yeah.
at each other going, who's got the idea? And they're sort of doing it like that amazing thing Paul McCartney writes, Get Back, and it's just a little riff. Then there's suddenly a little switch where it turns into an all-time classic. And I'm fascinated by where's that magic dust come from? I mean, I like to know where it comes from for my own sake. And also that thing, the shift in it, the shift between a riff and something totally magical. What does create that? And even after all these years, I don't have any idea. Which none of the musicians I've ever spoke to have any idea either. They look as baffled as anyone else. The moment it turned into something amazing.
Do you think, and I almost ask you in a way because it's fun to talk to somebody else who's done it. So I enjoy your interviews also, and I've seen you be interviewed and be on the other side, and you're a really good interviewer. And obviously, you're a really good entertainer and um, victim, person to be interviewed. You on both sides. So that's why this conversation to me is definitely a different level. Where when I was preparing for this, I'm like, I don't get super prepared like notes and stuff, but like you've been in like two different bands. I enjoy, but as this kind of like a media musical journalist, when you speak with people and the way you showed as an interviewer and not being pedestrian to fellow musicians, like with the same
Oh
question over and over again.
no, because you change your questions, don't you? I mean, it's I guess the thrust is the same, isn't it? It's the same kind of idea. You want to know about the person's life, their motivation, and their inspiration, isn't it? But you don't ask the same questions, do you? It's like this is a conversation. I think the best interviews are conversations, aren't they? It's
I agree with you. That's why I follow you because I agree with you on that one.
yeah,
But
I
not
hate
everybody
when
thinks though that way.
to me, clipboards, when people write the questions down and it's really linear. It's boring, isn't it? You come up with an answer, and then somebody goes back to their question three, like it's a test in school. And in music, you can't pin it down. I don't think it's just something as formal as straight questions, correct answers. No, there's no correct answer, is there? It's just it's what you feel at that time. I mean, what you feel right now could be completely different tomorrow about music. When people say, I know it's a device that we use a lot. What's your favorite records, 10 records, or whatever. And it's fun and interesting, but it should never be defining because it just changes all the time, doesn't it?
For some people, I've done that before, and I like to say what's your at the moment, and I'll say sometimes if it's a newer artist, I'm saying to people like people are aware of you. They've got to check out, both the bands you've been in, and there's so much, there's like a wealth of stuff to jump into the world of John Robb that you've done. You've been so prolific. But this to me is a conversation, and I think when I first started this, people were like, you need to ask these questions, and you need to do this, and no one cares about the guitars, the albums. I'm like, that's what I care about, and I think the reason why I'm doing it is because that's not out there, and a conversation is always the best way to find out about the artist. I mean, if I'm listening to your music, I'm inspired by you. Somebody's going to ask you those same 10 questions. Let's just talk about what's going on,
That
and then I think,
diagram, in it, that's the interesting place, isn't it? Where I think the same with music as well. I often think now music is actually harmony in a world of chaos. The world is
yeah,
chaotic, getting more chaotic. The people who run the world are getting crazier. And then yeah, not mentioning no names, but
you're
somewhere in
right.
the yeah, it's funny actually. I was thinking about that Bruce Springsteen thing because obviously he said that in Manchester the other day, and people saying you should keep politics out of music, but I was thinking you should keep showbiz out of politics. It's actually the way around, isn't it? Where where's the boring people? I want somebody who's really boring to run the world, run different countries. You know, the boring sort of number
Right.
crunchers. That's their job, isn't it? It's not mad showbiz people's job, is it? So yeah, so music in a sense is a harmony in a world of chaos, isn't it? And a conversation is a harmony in a world of chaos as well. They're like little islands in all the craziness, aren't they?
I 100% agree, and I think to me, the show has been a passion thing. But I agree, and I think talking to artists, to me, I've learned I think art and art as music and all kinds of art is what's going to save the world if there's any hope, because that creative wellspring is what makes us do things. It's not going to work and crunching numbers. I can't wait to do that. I mean, maybe for some people, but you know what I'm saying? Those kind of things inspire you. A good song, a painting, you know, a beautiful tree. How does a tree created besides the science? You know what I'm saying? The beauty of creation of a baby. You know,
Oh
that's what
yeah.
inspires life. Not
I tell you wait on that one. I think this it's not just a wonder of music, it's a wonder of everything, isn't it? Like
yeah.
the wonder of the universe, our little tiny little micro corner of the universe, isn't it? And it's everything is fascinating in a sense. And I think maybe a true artist, well, different types of artists, isn't there? So you can't say, so completely awful people can make great art, or completely boring people can make great art. But I kind of like the ones you speak to or interview, or the ones who do stuff that have the wonder of everything in a way, isn't it? So maybe it's our way of explaining the chaos, but with harmony. Yeah,
You, I agree. And like you've known, like I lose you.
yeah, it's freezing a bit, isn't
Oh,
it?
let's hold on a second.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry about that. Hold on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Hello.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll edit that thing. So what I think is great about you is you, even your band, you've always done. You're very smart and educated in the questions you ask, and you're very much into science. And I love your love for dinosaurs and all things that would not be that's not punk from the outside. Because I think what people don't realize is, to me, the beauty of a lot of great music is written in punk. Great melody is in punk, like harmony, relationships. I think people that don't embrace punk don't really get what punk is about, and also downplay the intelligence of people that are involved.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and I
think
think you're a
I think
great yeah.
punk's an indefinable anyway. I mean, there is no punk. There is no. Everybody's got a different version of what punk is, so nobody can say punk has to be this or has to be that. That's in a sense you're instantly not understanding punk when you're telling people what it should be. You know, and it's the original punk, which I'm old enough to remember the first word punk. All the bands were. I know it's weird, isn't it? All the bands were utterly completely different. You know, the Clash, Pistols, the Jam even were a punk band. When I was, 77, Buzzcocks, Stranglers, the British bands. There was nothing really that similar about them. They play guitars, a bit faster, it's exciting, a little bit of aggression. I suppose they're the commonalities, but really they all look different, all sounded different. And then it became a genre. And I think that happens all types of music, doesn't it? People pick their favourite bits out of a genre and repeat them endlessly. And again, that could be really effective, but it doesn't mean that they can say this is what the genre is. I'm not going to say what the genre is. It's nothing to do with me. I just pick the bits I like out of the genre. And I think there is a really curious thing, especially in British culture, where people downplay their intelligence. It's looked on as being a bit poncy to be intelligent. Who do you think you are being like that? Like it's how we are in this country, and it's different in America, isn't it? People, people. If you're smart in America, you tell people, but you don't do that here. And it's a bit more. Being
I like to
humble
go
is a
further
big
enough to say,
deal.
if you're not smart in America, you still tell people you're smart.
Yes, so this is what you end up with, isn't it? Like, yeah, yeah. What do they say? There's nothing worse than a stupid person thinks they're a genius.
That's right. If
But then
someone's
there's
telling you
nothing.
what they are, you got to question what they are. You know what I mean?
But then there's nothing worse than a genius who pretends to be stupid, isn't there? So it's yes, we got to get somewhere in the middle on this one. So yeah, I mean, I just done a book on Oasis, and it's the same there. Noel Gallagher's one of the smartest people I've ever met in a band, but he's not going to say that. He's gonna play it down a bit, and be humble, in a sense, sometimes, and that's a very British way, So
Yeah.
it's what we like. We're stuck with it.
Noel is the perfect chess player. I was going to talk. Let's talk about that for a minute because you're a book writer and you've written a couple books too. And I'm guilty. I haven't read them both. They're both on my book list. Ever since like you should know doing a show and doing everything you do, my pleasure reading and guitar playing went to the side. because the amount of time of keeping up to do a show and edit it and everything. I brought a book time, and now I just have this book list. This I want to see the new book you did about the goth book you did. I'm still behind. I haven't read that one yet, also, which I've heard fantastic things about. Fantastic. So the links, by the way, will be underneath the show. I want people to go support all of John's stuff because you know I've heard so many good things about him. So they are both on my list. But let's start with the Oasis thing. I mean, that is fantastic. But you want to talk about that book a little bit though?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a start, I like detail, and I don't like to follow the accepted narrative. So there's going to be like this band did this record was great. The one said afterwards words are good, but I don't, you listen and think, oh wait a minute, that's wrong. That, and I'm sure these records are really great as well. So I like to tell the story through my lens, really, and also I respect pop culture. All kinds of pop culture are fascinating, aren't they? Why do people dress like that? Why do they sound like that? Why did that happen here? And when they started for 2 years, they were going upstream. Nobody wanted another Manchester band, and that's quite interesting. They had this determination to go against the grain, and I like bands that are against the grain. They don't trust the grain,
Yeah.
when people say it has to be like this, and this is the sound, and this is all over. It doesn't work like that. Music, it bubbles up somewhere else, Like so, the minute a scene is over, it's not over, don't you? So for all my life, when people have got music, rock and roll was dead, man, or punk is dead. It was funny that it just carries on, you know. And you get these kind of really massive bands that sort of disappear beyond the narrative. You don't hear them on the radio or read about them. There's huge bands in England that sell 40,000 tickets for a gig in Manchester. No one's really heard of them. So I'm
Mhm.
interested in all that as well. I might not even like the bands, but I'm interested in how that occurs and how people nowadays choose their own culture as well. I don't think anybody dictates the culture. And I think that can be quite good as well. It's people find the music they like. Because it's all the internet really, and it's completely changed everything on it.
Totally. And I think you could still have like you get recommendations and stuff, but like one of the things I enjoy about you, like I'm going with your website and your I follow that because I get turned on to music that I don't get exposed to. So I'm always learning about music. There's just so much out there. And I know a lot. People are like, every band, I'm like, you have no idea I don't. I feel like I scratch the surface. When people think I know so much, it's like the iceberg or the Titanic, you know what I mean? I'm like, I know nothing. So I
Yeah,
love
well,
to get turned on to a new band, and I've been turned on to somebody from your site,
I think I think the first thing is to know that we all know nothing really. There's so many new bands now. It's like years ago when I started writing, you knew all the new bands because there's only about 10 of them a year. But now there's like every day there's loads of bands.
Mhm.
Everybody's creating stuff. I mean, the tragedy is now there's too much stuff and you can't all get heard. So
Mhm.
there's endless debates in England about how can we make music a career for everybody. And I'm thinking you can't physically have everybody having a career. You'd have like a whole country full of musicians and like nobody growing lettuces. I mean, maybe we have to do both. It's like, yeah. So it's great that everybody can be creative, but to expect to have a career out of it as well is probably a bit of a push nowadays. And
Well,
it's
you still need challenges. Not everyone can be a basketball player either, because some people just aren't able to be tall
yeah,
enough to do it. You can't
course,
do everything.
but they should be able to play basketball. So my local
Exactly.
park is full of kids playing basketball. They have no interest in making a career out of it. They just like playing
Right.
basketball. Which actually looks quite odd because it's not that big a game over here. So it's weird. We have in my local park, seems to be every basketball player in Manchester's out there all winter. We've got 4 games going all at once.
That's pretty fun. That's kind of punk rock itself right there. You know, to me, going against the grain, I had on Lorena McKenna, folk singer and stuff, and she told me when she started out that she took all of her money that she had and invested whatever and invested into her own studio. There's no one who's buying any of that kind of music. I'm like, that is so punk. You had no audience, no nothing. You took all your money into something that nobody wanted to hear at the time because you
Yeah,
wanted to do
but
it.
well, I get that. You got to have a self belief to make stuff. And
Right.
whether anybody's interested or not, it should not get in the way. You just do it anyway. It's
Mhm.
it's willful. That's not a recipe for success. Most of those people
No.
don't ever make it. But I don't know how you measure success either. I mean, obviously the ideal position is if you can make the music exactly the way you want and people pay for it and you can keep doing it without being having to have to do a job as well. I guess that's the level you should be aiming at if you can get there, which is pretty much a minority space, small space to be in. If you don't get that, it should not stop you creating. We're lucky that we can actually live in a space where we can create. That's almost a decadence on its own, isn't it?
it is funny. I mean, I've talked to some people and be like, their music success, they're tour musicians and they have some albums out and they can tour and they never have to do anything else. They're just musicians and they feel good about that. But then they also like, but they weren't successful like say Steven Tyler's success. I'm like, then they question themselves, but then times they realize how successful they are. It's like what the level is. I'm like, you're a touring, successful musician. That's success as a musician. Then it's just like,
Yeah.
what tier can you accept yourself as feeling like what you feel against society is just a whole nother id, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's people always say that bands, you get your number one album in Britain, you go to America, and you're number 72 again. So it's just like this is what capitalism does to you, doesn't it? Because it puts exact measurements on failure and success, doesn't it?
It
When
it,
it's
it does.
to actually in the end, the point of true success is when you create something, you've actually created something that's good, and you know it's good yourself. That's level one, I think. And then anything else really is an extra. It doesn't mean you shouldn't aim for it, but also you shouldn't feel weighed down by it either. And of course I would say that because I'm in a cold band. That's always our get out, isn't it? We didn't really fail. It-
Of course you didn't. We're talking about. I mean, and I think that's
it's
the
fine.
real goal. Isn't that really kind of like more of the goal of this? Like, what is failure is like? I almost think like failure is some kind of preconceived thing where it's like it's not. If you we're talking about your band, we're talking about all these bands, so we're doing it. That's not failure. Failure is what somebody making certain money because you didn't have that certain house and the job is the doctor. Like that's like like you grew up. Remember, it's like everybody had the perfect family, and then all of a sudden as you get older now, we're like I don't think anybody had the perfect family except for one person. That person's the weirdo with the perfect family. Like what Bill Gill's, what we sold as a child. I think bands
Yeah, I
like
mean,
yours are successful. I mean that's
oh
the whole
yeah,
point
yeah.
of this.
I'm happy. I've got away with doing it for years. There is a certain amount of people buy into it, so we can go and do another record. So get a space to be creative in, and I think that is, to me, that's a level of success. We were never going to be a
Totally.
commercial band because we had no understanding of how to make music commercial. And I don't have anything wrong because I like pop music. And to me, punk was pop music when it started.
Mhm.
I don't like the idea of a willful underground. To me, equals a snobbishness sometimes. It's like you have to understand this music. I hate all that, but then I realized my music is that. You have to know what we're trying to do to get it. But at the same time, not because I want loads of money, not interested in that, but I don't like the idea that people think I'm deliberately making it difficult, because to me, it's all pop culture, So I grew up with glam rock, punk rock. They were all, David Bowie was a perfect example, wasn't it? It was art rock for the masses. That's what we're all trying to do in it, but most of us end up making art rock without the masses bit. But punk was like that, wasn't it? I mean, all those bands loads of them went to art school. They were art rock, and they had top 10 hits, and they changed the whole fabric of British culture. I'm talking from a British point of perspective here because those bands are big here. This is the bit the Americans didn't happen in America. The Ramones would get to 148 in the American charts, but in England, all the punk bands were having like top 10 albums.
Yeah.
It was a game changer, a seismic shift in the culture. And it was, to this day the reverberations continue. You could argue the whole city of Manchester was changed by the Sex Pistols playing here in 1976. It was inspiring all those bands that came after us, like Joy Division, Smiths, Fall. All those groups came out those two gigs, but those groups also changed Manchester's idea of itself, empowered it. It went from a post-industrial city to a post-punk city. It looked at itself through a different filter. It suddenly became the prime creative city in the UK. It actually got ahead of London. But once you got Joy Division in your city, you've got post-punk. There it is, right in front of you. London had to play catch up to Manchester. Suddenly, everyone in the city thinks, not everyone, but a lot of people in the city think we're ahead of the game here, and they never stop thinking that. So, like now, instead of all
It's
being these
self-belief.
crumbling decay, it's all like massive towers. I mean, massive towers aren't very punk rock, but at the same time, they look like a Joy Division album cover. So it's weird how the whole perception of Manchester and what it felt and the lens it looked at itself in really changed, and that came out of punk rock. And that's an example of how punk was more about not just record collecting; it's a
Right.
cultural shift.
And I think I may say it like to me, I've always thought punk was a do-it-yourself, screw the world attitude for everything. The word punk to me is just anarchy in that way. And of course, the music, but what to me, and I'm gonna tell you what made me think about when see when we're talking, and you're such a great music archaeologist, is what you are to me, is and with your history there, I think so many bands in that area, maybe like just in that town, but in that area, have not only were they part of the core of such a great sound, you guys, including yourself, were always due to lack of instruments. A lot of stories I hear from American bands are, and it's not a dig, it's just the fact that I got this old guitar, it was just bad. I'll laugh because I've got an acoustic guitar. The strings were so high, and it was steel guitar from the Sears, like it would cut your fingers. It was just like you could slide like pack of cigarettes underneath it. It was so bad, and you didn't want to play for years. It's stories like with you is like you built your bass guitar. Like a lot of guys in each band had their keyboards are just like just two sounds. Like you guys created so many makeshift instruments. It feels like, and maybe you can fill it in better because as I said it to you, it feels like there's a lot of stories I hear like that about.
Yeah, I mean, most people I grew up with didn't have, no one had musical instruments. Nobody even thought about playing musical instruments. But because of punk, it kind of set down the challenge. It was like anyone can do this. But of course, not anyone can do it because those bands had a really high musical level, which we didn't realize. So we got instruments. We had a guitar with 4 strings on it. We didn't know there was 6. And I wanted a violin bass, but I didn't know where you get a violin bass. So I carved a piece of wood with a penknife into the shape of a violin and screwed the neck of a cheap Woolworths bass into it. And then this
I
mate of
love
mine
that.
put
I love that.
some other guy put some pickups in for me because I wouldn't know how to do that. And it weirdly, luckily, it sounded amazing. It's an incredible instrument, but it got nicked in the end. But so that, I mean, when we played gigs, the first gigs we played, we couldn't tune up. We didn't know about chords or scales. Everything was out of tune, but we got up and played anyway. We didn't know there was any limitations. We just wondered why it sounded so berserk, so crazy. But to me, that was punk rock, the spirit of DIY punk rock. It got people never ever thought they were ever going to go on a stage, and they got up and got on a stage and did it anyway. And that was a powerful, kind of revolutionary thing, really. It was empowering. And it empowered me to be a writer. Because of fanzines, I got a typewriter and just made a fanzine. I'd never written anything. I just started typing, and I've just carried on since then. And I think there's a lot of people I know like that. We didn't go to a college to learn it; we just did it. Yeah,
Because you're well versed, you're well spoken, you know, it's surprising that the world looks down on people that don't have that same kind of hoity-toity thing, you know,
yeah,
without a certain kind of like license or degree or something. Because I enjoy your writing, I enjoy the way you present things. It's smart, it's proper, and it's you can do something that you can do. You speak to the people, but in a way that's understood, but it's also smart. There's a balance because you can be there's a fine line.
you should always confound expectations. Anyway, I mean that was part of punk rock, wasn't it? I mean, the minute it became stupid, you didn't want to be in that box, did you? But at the same time, I also don't think there has to be a high entry bar. You can actually not be super smart, but just feel the music and do your version of it. And I like a lot of that stuff as well. I mean, I don't think you're better than someone because of a certain reason. It's just
No,
everybody's trying to do this stuff and it's their genuine version of it. And I think one of the great things in punk was that everybody had one great song, didn't they? So there's just hundreds of these 7-inch singles with one great song on it, and everybody had their moments, and some bands were smart and got out, and some kept trying to find that magic again. And I quite like that idea that it is a flash in the pan, and a youthful moments when somehow these teenagers in rooms stumble over something, that the magical thing, isn't it? Like very
hmm
few are smart or have that level of graft to keep replicating it.
I think part of it, well, yeah, it's luck too. It depends on who cares, who's paying attention at the time. With most
Oh
music,
yeah,
it's nostalgia. Like, oh, that band's got the best, whatever. It's all because just you're usually in your teens. It's usually when you have expendable money before you go off and get a job or get college or not or work or get married. That's your period. That's emotional for a lot of people in the world, and that's their hotspot, and they always go back to it. As far as the core, I think the core commercial buying audience for music. You know,
yeah, I think so. But then the core audience has changed a lot over the years, hasn't it? Because it's not a teenage form anymore, is it? And I mean, it's still young people making great music,
but
but yeah,
do you think there's a
but
comeback though financially for you though? Sorry to be a step on you. There's a little delay. Like now
is
that
it?
their age group has changed and their kids are off to school or they're off their jobs.
Is
Economically,
it?
the shows probably have changed now for a lot of the bands. Have gotten better, I think, because their fans have gotten
Yeah,
more money again back in their pockets as they've gotten older.
there's more generations going. There's 3 or 4 generations of music culture now. It's no young. used to be a generation gap that doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
And the older fans do a proper job, so they can afford to pay for stuff. Although then the agents and the promoters saw that and they put the prices up through the roof, haven't they? So to a point where it could all just implode at any minute. You know, the greed gets in the way. You know, it's but again, I would say that because I'm not in a position where I could get away with charging loads of money. But I don't think I ever would really. I think I don't undervalue music, but I don't think I overvalue it either. You know, you got to live in the real world sometimes.
Well, I mean, okay, that's a good example. So, like, I know and you talk to Noel and those guys. You did the Oasis thing. They are in a world where the numbers and things get away from them because they've got their own who they are. I'm sure you talk to him. He's just quite average on many levels. And then he has a world of handlers and people in that. And there's only so much you can do in that huge world. You have to push off to other people,
Well, yeah,
and then
because you're running a multinational business. You know, it's
right.
you're doing stadium gigs in all over the world to 80,000 people,
And
and you
trying to be an
can't.
artist too, a sensitive
You,
artist.
yeah, yeah, and you can't run that out of an iPhone sat in a chair like I do. You know, you got to have people in each country doing it. It's a big operation. It's a completely different world than or model than I exist in. You know, it's the world I live in. You get your mates, you pay your mate a bit of money to drive you to a gig. So that's about it, the limit of it. But when you're in those kind of bands, it's enormous, and you can't afford to get it wrong either, because it's so in public and also
Right.
dangerous. If you get a security gig wrong and everyone gets
But
killed.
even for a band though, in their defense, I'm not saying in a band when you get that size, a lot of bands they can't micromanage that, and so a lot of it's like, oh, Oasis was charging X amount or whatever. Well, there's so many levels removed, they can't do everything physically. No, couldn't sit
Yeah,
down and do everything. Like, there's no way you could control everything, and the numbers match to this, to this, to this. I'm saying so
no, you
sometimes the
can't.
band's getting beaten up for every little thing of the shows. Look, if you love the band and you can't afford the show, then you can't afford the show. There's economics, and the band's just trying to get there themselves. There's enough of a battle to get up on the stage and play wherever it is. I think
Yeah, yeah, and
you
also
know,
you think if you're writing a song that 2 million people are going to be could potentially buy, maybe you're better off just sitting around writing songs than arranging the hotels. I mean, some big bands they manage themselves, and don't they? Like Robert Smith does a lot of the Cure's managing,
yeah.
and Mick Jagger's quite involved with the Stones to this day, isn't he? So yeah, so it's yeah. I mean, it depends on your model, doesn't it? I'd be quite happy not to do admin all day long. It's not. I didn't get
The
into this
thing.
for admin.
How do you balance your time though? Because you are a great author and you write for your website, and you also do two bands. Well, depending on what time of day it is. How are you finding a time to be that creative to everything and focus and do one thing well at a time?
You just do stuff all the time, really. I don't. My idea of hell sitting around watching telly all night. I don't know where people find the time to watch soap operas.
Yeah, that's a
It's.
lot. Daily is a
I,
lot.
I mean, I'm lucky. I do something that entertains me. I find it. Writing a book is hard. It can be very intense, but I actually like writing. So there's so many. You know, there's so many distractions, isn't there? But the actual thing that you do is actually better than the distraction, so that helps.
Well, I mean, to you, writing a book, I imagine it's also the investigative part, the talks, the interviews. The book itself is like the last part of it, typing it all in and proofreading it and stuff. You put the story together in the creation on its own is going to be probably the most fun part. And then having it the way you wanted it at the end.
One of the fun parts is when you're writing and you get on the flow and it pours out of you. The same with music. I mean, that's the magic dust bit, isn't it?
Mm.
Like the bits where you set up and you're getting in the mood, you do the first few lines, they're not really working, that's not so good. Then suddenly, bang, it pours out. Then you can't stop for about 3 hours and it's ace, And I actually like find that physically, I find that really addictive, the idea rush, like being in the studio, you can hear loads of different instruments and think, yeah, there's got to be, let's do like this. And that's ace, in that space, the magic dust space. I think every artist feels like that. I think that is, to me, that's when you do these interviews. You just want to know what they feel like when they're in the zone, the creative zone. It's amazing. It's just you can't explain it to people unless they've done it. You feel really free and light and everything just pouring out. It's a stunning feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I first started out, I worked in a recording studio, and I think that's probably one of the best times ever. because the amount of creativity in the room and the source of the recording and the sound, and there's just so much involved in a day where it's easy to get lost in a 12, 13-hour day for long periods of time. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah, but which is great. That thing in the studio, isn't it? You can when it goes right. I mean, when it goes wrong, it's a graft, isn't it? It's a slog. But when it's flowing, the band is swinging, and it's
right.
all going down really quick. It's really good, isn't it?
And I
To
would
the
say,
point,
like
to
in
the
the
to
creative
the
point,
point.
not with the drugs and the alcohol point, where it's just like the Eagles and you're so far in. I'm talking about the creative part of the art. It's working in the early part of the music.
Well, there's always that in there because bands think the drugs make the creativity, but the
Right.
creativity's already there, isn't it? It's just I always say to people, have you got any tips for writing? You know, writing articles or whatever. And I say just do the first paragraph last. Just start writing. To get to there's some of your brain switches from left to right. The flow comes, and you're away. You know, it's there is no trick. That's the only one. You know, you just let it come out. You won't get it from the top. You have to get into that place because it's not a place. You don't walk down the street in that mood. And it's the same with music, isn't it? So people go, the only way I can get into this space is do loads of coke. But of course, it isn't, is it? That gets in the way, isn't it? It blots your brain
Right.
out. You know, if you're actually, you just got to get in tune with yourself, like you're in tune with the guitar. You know,
Well, I think if you can if you can tap into it without anything. Some people need drugs to tap into it. I think later on they learn they don't need to tap into that
so
source.
I think they're
You know.
conning themselves. I think they may give you a different mindset, but you don't need to keep going back to that place. So you can nudge it in that
Right.
direction. But then you can always get back in that place again once you've been there. You know, you once you take an acid once, you don't need to take it 800 times to get back in that space. You know, the door is already open, as Jim Morrison would have told you.
I
Care
know
of
some people
Aldous
will take an
Huxley.
acid. It seems like it comes back to them all the time, and they're not taking it anymore, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it could actually frazzle you out. So you got less
Yeah.
brain cells to play with. I mean,
It
yeah,
settles into your bones differently than some people, and that's it.
yeah. I mean, and it is a great experience, but it doesn't mean you're going to go and write an opera the next morning.
Yeah, right. Right. So where are you
Yeah.
musically? Like what are you working on musically? Because I know so you just did a book and you had another book last year. So you do music for any of the
Um,
bands?
well, I'm always writing songs all the time, permanently. You know, that's the thing about technology now. You got like a little studio with your phone, so you can just endlessly write songs. And I think I quite like just having them for myself. You know, just like playing the back to me, so I don't even have to release them. I think that
Mhm.
sounds good. You know, because in a way, that's probably another function music has. You just entertain yourself by making bits of music. I don't really care if anyone else buys into it. But then maybe at some point I'll go, "Yeah, maybe I'll just go and record all these and put them out and see what happens, you know." So, but it's never, I've never had a career thing. People say, your career is amazing. You've done this and this. It's not a career. It's just, it's still like a 16-year-old getting my typewriter out, doing a bit of writing, playing around with guitar, see what turns up, doing this, doing that, you know, whoever's engaging me, I just go and do it, you know, and I'm lucky to be in that space. But it's not a career. I'm not thinking if I do that, that'll be good for my career. I don't, I don't think in terms of a career. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like as a songwriter, and one of the things I've always found interesting, and that is a question I always ask, because like sometimes an artist, so I don't, most songwriters always write because you just kind of have to write because you get these ideas, or if you're a writer or whatever, and you're a writer and a songwriter, so you've kind of got a lot going on there, and you live the world and you communicate with people, so there's all kinds of stories around you and inspiration. Um, it's like when I hear an artist they go they're retiring, and I'm like, oh, maybe you just maybe it's and they're like, I'm selling all my gear, like guitars, everything. I'm like, you're not going to just play your guitar or even yourself, like I mean, not even perform. And they're like, nope, I've got nothing in me. I'm gone. I never want to touch music again. That to me is always like, I don't know if I say sad or weird, or will it change? Because like to me, I don't think I can ever just sound like ever. But I mean, maybe it's just so burned out and so tired of it. Like that's an interesting point to be. But most artists don't get that way. They're just like, no, I'll write for myself, which makes sense.
Yeah. But then, of course, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, does it? You can't, you can only make it for yourself, can't you? Then I say this is the process, right? You make a song up, you put it in a room with a band, everyone puts their bits in, there's your moment of harmony, everyone's joined in. Then you take it to a gig, couple of hundred people a room. The audience get on it, they like the song. You're a 204-piece band in harmony. That's the magic of it. You know, it's the thing about music being a harmony in a world of chaos, isn't it? You know, it's that's our version of it. It might not look like harmony because people jump around doing crazy
Mhm.
shit, But that's our punk rock version of harmony.
Well, I think it's to me that is harmony. That's what the world needs is what the unity of all these different people together. That
Yeah,
is
I think so
music.
completely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the power of music. But then, as soon as you say that, you start to contradict it. You think, yeah, there's other music that doesn't do that. But I think generally, in my space, yeah, yeah,
I think it does. I think I get like for me, for my show, I have a lot of different artists on. I have like Cannibal Corpse, and then I'll have Air Supply on because I wanted my show, like I don't monetize it because it like so we're about monetizing it, we're about clickbait and this and that. And then it takes the honesty out of it. And to me, I was like, I just want to put a show together that was like in the 70s in America, like you'd read these paper article thing, entertainment like weekly things and be like, all different artists would be in it. And I might be like, I don't really care about Barbara Mandrell. Not saying I don't, not putting it out there, but I'm saying for an example of somebody from the 70s that a kid may not like. And I'll be like, but man, you read the article and you talk or you see an interview and you're like, I like that person though. But to
oh yeah,
me,
of
that
course,
was always the
yeah,
adventure of this show to be like, you might not like Air Supply or you might like go Cannibal Corpse, but you might like that person. You might open your mind and something could happen, you know?
I totally agree there. I think you don't actually have to like what the person does to be interested in why they do it, or in fact, everybody's interesting in a sense, aren't they? You know, it's
Oh, I totally.
yeah, I think it's a few people whose music I probably wouldn't listen to an awful lot, but I'm interested in how they got to that space. You know, it's interesting how they make it also an interest in pop culture anyway, isn't it? You know, like well, most pop culture is pretty fascinating, isn't it? You know, and how people how it works, why it works, is completely mesmerizing, I think.
But the changes for me though, that's what always excited me was early on is getting an audience that would stick to it because they all want to just rock or just that. I'm like, no, it's just music and it's people and it's an adventure and there's a bigger picture. Finally, I mean, I think some people started to catch on, but people want to put everything into a little window, you know?
Yeah,
And
but probably because of chaos, people have to make rigid structures, don't they, to find their entertainment. And I get that, you know, sometimes you do feel like that, but sometimes you just think, you know, all right, I'm not allowed in that room. I'm definitely going in there.
I like the idea of this. Oh, so this guy has another artist on the show. I wonder how this person thinks. Oh, I do like their music. I'm not feeling the music. I wonder if this person's like. To me, that's the entrance to it. Um, I've seen you do interviews, and this is something I've always thought about. And sometimes when you talk to an artist that maybe doesn't do a lot of interviews, or they're super interesting, or they have a colorful background, we'll say, and you think that that person would be super interesting, but when you talk to them, it's like pulling teeth. And the
Yeah,
challenge is to
but
keep them interesting and engaged on both sides with them, and of course, because you have an audience.
yeah, I mean, it's hard work for us as an interviewer, but I also don't think they have an obligation to explain their art. You know, they
No,
probably have no idea where it came from. I mean, a lot of people make music are quite introverted souls, creative souls who work on their own a lot. I mean, they do interviews because they need to get people to know about their music, but they're not very good at interviews. Don't like doing them. I don't mind that. You know, my job is to explain it for them in a sense.
mhm. Well, you're really good. I think it's funny, especially to talk to some. If you really talk to these right books, are usually the best because they usually ask me more questions. I've had it's the funniest. But and I always assume like when I talk to an artist, I'm like, oh, they've probably had like 4 interviews before this. They're just so smiling because they just try to be nice people. Like to me, I always feel like, what can I do to engage this to make this a fun half hour, 45 minutes? Like, what can you do? And then when they're like still doing it, I'm like, I feel the pressure. Like, how can I make this better for them and still make it fun for everybody else? Like I feel like I'm in the middle. Do you ever feel that
Uh,
way? Like,
Yeah, like you're the entertainer.
well, yeah, like you want to give to them because like they've had so much going on. How can you make this also worth their time so it's not so painful? But you also want to do a good interview,
Well,
you
I
know?
think so. I mean, you definitely have to create a rapport where you can get a trust. You know, and it's weird. You have to get a trust with somebody you never met before within
Hmm.
1 minute. You know, I mean, when I interviewed Pat Smith for 30 seconds to get a rapport before we went out on stage. You know, and luckily she's a really brilliant interview in that. But you know, you can get a trust. You can get the person relaxed nearly every single time. You can get that, but it still doesn't mean they have to tell you everything. They may have no idea. You know, and I like that as well. I like the way some people can't explain it. That I can't explain. So,
No, I get it. I enjoy the challenge sometimes of people coming in. Like, I think for the hardest was I did. I love Jethro Tull. I had a chance to talk to Ian, and I just started doing the show, so it's new and it can be nerve wracking. And the thing pops on, I get the window, whatever. Now I have a little more leeway time with the size of my show and stuff with people.
It's
But
funny with him and with Ian Anderson, isn't it? Because he's meant to be a really difficult interview, but he's actually pretty good at doing interviews, isn't he?
he's good. What it is I have autism, so to me, I feel like he may be on a spectrum where he's focused. Because what he said was when like the thing came up, the interview came up, he was like a couple minutes late, and I never take things personal like that. And it possibly goes, oh, sorry, run me, I'm late, in the interview, no time for niceties, go. Like I couldn't even say hello.
Yeah, yeah,
The man's been doing
yeah.
interviews for 50 years, and he's like, no time for you to say hello, go. You're like,
I actually had a good thing cards played with him because he went to my school, but obviously 15 years before me. So he
Mhm.
grew up in Blackpool, where I grew up.
Okay,
So and the PR said he hates, don't talk about Blackpool, he hates Blackpool. But I said, as I said, you went to my school and we had a teacher talk. Oh, do you remember Mr. Rigby? Yes, I remember him. He was there. He was there when Ian Anderson was there 64 and I was there in 72 or whatever. And we're the same
okay.
teachers. It was quite weird moments. I think that really caught him out. I don't think he expected to be in a conversation that brought him back to be pre-band days, So yeah, so it's quite
He's
weird.
great though.
Yeah, he's really good, and he's very intelligent as well. I like that.
Hmm.
He's got a really good take on what he does. And as the years roll by, I mean, when I was a glam rock kid, I couldn't really understand Jethro Tull, but now I get them now. He's like the British Captain Beefheart in a way. The first two albums, pretty grouty blues
Hmm.
with cool,
I
weird,
agree.
interesting
I did
concepts.
not get him as a child. As I got older, I got Jethro Tull, Frank Zappa. Like I got stuff when I get older. I just did not get it in my little brain. I got punk rock and I got metal as a kid. You know what I mean? As
I
I got
don't,
older, I
I
grew into
can't,
everything else.
I can't get Zappa at all. It's too virtuoso for me. I get him as a person. I understand,
Hmm.
but I'm way, way, way more Beefheart because Beefheart, despite deliberately trying to make it really difficult, actually ends up writing really catchy, mad little
Yes.
riffs. All those mad little Trackmaster Replica is just a collection of really catchy
Oh
guitar
my
licks,
God.
isn't
Are
it?
you kidding me? I've
You know,
never heard it. That is funny. That album does not get talked about a lot. One of the funniest things that is it's funny to hear that from you. I'm glad to hear that because I do a
it's
lot of
definitely
Zappa, so that's why it's funny to
it's
hear that.
definitely not a Magic Mushroom record though.
It is not. It is not. No, it's
No, no,
it,
we had to we had to crawl across the floor and take the needle off and trying to work out how to do it because it was just tying our heads up into knots. Um, I mean, to me, to this day, the Beatles are the greatest psychedelic band, which is weird. The biggest band in the world was the best one to listen to in altered states. I guess because they had all the best effects, didn't they? So they can make everything sound really psychedelic.
well, they had one of the best producers, but you said an earlier thing. I know you were probably talking about the Get Back in the documentary with that one part in the video when Paul was writing the song and they caught the
It-
song.
yeah,
I
it's
saw that as
amazing,
one of the
isn't
most
it?
magical things in the world recorded ever on video. I'm like, our film rather. That scene to me, I'm like, that is like the nexus of like how the hit songs were made. That's it. You're watching
Whole
it.
process, isn't it? Just sitting there going dum 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 dum. You think, well, yeah, that's just a complete boogie riff. And he starts coming up with a little melody. You think,
Yeah,
fucking hell, there is. And the best bit is he's trying to do the words. And you go, no, no,
yeah.
it's Sweet Loretta Martin. I've got it. I know it is. He hasn't got the line yet. I'll tell you what really makes a song though is when Ringo starts playing the drums to it,
Mm.
and you think, oh yes, that's the power of Ringo Starr, the greatest drummer in the '60s. He puts the shuffle
Yeah.
beat down, and suddenly it's the song, and it's all there, isn't it? He's not just keeping time, is he? He's driving, shaping the songs. He's a very melodic drummer. He's a great listener, great player.
I always think the drums are like a song is like a car to me, and the drums is actually the frame, the
Yeah,
shape of a
isn't
car,
it?
sports car, whatever. So to me, I mean, that's a very sexy drum sound of Ringo, and I think you can always say it was popular, whatever. But like, if you're just a songwriter, you just listen to the drums and what he plays. It's like another language. It's just like a bottom. Like anybody, there's a reason why certain people are famous drummers. You know,
Yeah, it's
it's unspoken in the studio, and the stuff that Ringo did. You know,
people are people think if it's really complicated, loads of mad drum rolls, therefore it's a great drummer, but that would just ruin all the songs, wouldn't it?
it
And also,
absolutely would.
he doesn't ever really play a straight four. He's always doing something quite off the wall. Great sort of off kilter drum rolls, and he's left-handed and he's playing right-handed, so he plays slightly differently. It gives it a great twist.
That might be part of it right there too. Just like like when like a drummer, people that are drummers also real good drummers that play guitar and are songwriters and using a band like a Dave Grohl or whatever name. I'm saying, I like trying to think of names that people would know that are watching. When you listen to their songs, you kind of feel their songs are very much more rhythmic than other songs that just guitar players write that don't play drums. You know, if you notice that drummers really make a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Yeah. It's half. When they play 5 instruments for a start, it's like half the sound, isn't it?
It is. It is. But I mean, it makes such a difference. Like, but I think like, but with Ringo, like, I can play the drum, but yeah, you can learn what he played. But creating the right drum parts with the right song for songs that are just written that are hits now. That
Oh
nothing
yeah.
was there's something like that. It was already that was being created right then. So you had to create your own stuff that had to go with that. There's no other drum stuff that was like that prior. People are in hindsight, that's
Yeah. Maybe everyone knows too much now.
well, it's not as magical because you can dissect the whole thing and you can learn it yourself. Everybody can learn Eddie Van Halen's guitar solo now. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you
Oh
created
yeah.
it. I mean,
No, that's it's well, like Spinal Tap, innit? You know. Oh, yeah. Jimmy Page came up with it when he was 22. I learned it when I was 18.
those
Pretty
boys,
mad, isn't it?
those guys are
Yeah.
pretty funny though. You know, um, it's but it is crazy. But to me, it does go back to the Beatles too. Like you said, it's my background. I'm a big fan.
It always goes back there. Yeah.
It does because there's so much going on. But they also did a lot of phases. When Yoko Ono in the video when she was singing and screaming, I'm like, oh, they're inventing noise and alternative rock right there too. There she is with that point when her and Paul were just jamming out. You know?
I like some. I really like some of her tracks. You know,
Yeah.
Don't Worry, Kayoko's great. There's about 4 or 5 where Lennon was off the leash because he was doing the music, and
Hmm.
it's like the Cold Turkey track, but done with Yoko singing about 6 different versions of it. You know, it's just that, and then it's like Metal Box by Pill 12 years early, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There was something going on that there is some creation that Yoko deserves to get some credit for. Maybe not all that singing that became a joke online, but there's a lot of stuff that she did that was untouched until later
yeah.
on.
I mean, she didn't split the Beatles up. Lennon was
Oh,
off. Lennon's not a conformist. He was bored of being in a band. I mean, he didn't. He didn't. Actually, ironically, it ruined his career more than everyone else leaving. But I get
yeah.
why he left because he just didn't want to be in that box anymore, did he? You know, I think he regretted it. I think he would have worked with Paul in a heartbeat again, but he was too proud to ask, wasn't he?
I think they missed each other more than they missed the band.
They were in love, you know. They were not sexual love, but they were
No, but they were brothers in a way. I guess brothers is the best way to say it.
even closer than brothers. You know, there's amazing bits in Get Back when they're looking at each other and they're in a little zone. Got the ultimate harmony, magic dust harmony moments.
Yeah.
They're just basically they're just locked in. And little George is in the background looking really pissed off because he can't get in. No
What's
one
the
could
scene
get
when
in.
they're like when George and he quit? They're like, we'll just get Clapton just to get him, just get his skin worked up. We'll just get Clapton and come in and play that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that was never going to happen. But I like
I
it
know,
when
I know.
George leaves the biggest band of all time and he goes, "See you in the clubs." And have you seen his diary entry that day? He said, "Went to studio, did a new song, left the Beatles, had some chips, went home." It's so
Oh,
blasé. They didn't seem to
uh,
have any idea, did they? They're in this cultural force way bigger than anything ever could be, in it.
well, no, and the fact that there was so many levels to them. There was the garage band, this band, the psychedelic. They did every phase, like it was like 10-year window, and then their solo careers, they all had brilliant songs as soloists,
Yeah, for a
Paul
period.
still tries being creative, like differently. He still pushes the limits.
I went to see him in Manchester in November. It's great,
Hmm.
fantastic 2.5 show. Just sounded amazing, really. And it's all in context because all the Wing stuff sits in the set very well. The Beatles stuff, it doesn't sound like a completely different career anymore. Then, and when I was a kid, it just sounded like a completely, utterly different thing that wasn't as good. But when all played together at the same time, it has a sense to it, line jot.
Well, Wings was a good band too, though. I mean, Band on the Run was a brilliant album. The story behind it. I mean, the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
he's
Ram
definitely a
was really
musician's
good.
musician. Paul. Besides the celebrity part, he's just a musician that
Yeah,
just works for the song.
he's an amazing player. You just go around the stage playing different instruments and the gig. Quite casually. Do you even have one sip of water? I don't know. That age, you think you're just going to fall over.
Do you find when you see other artists doing it, like, you know what? I want to learn this instrument, or I want to change this, or add this, because I know some musicians always want to keep learning and changing their styles.
Yeah,
Over
I
the
mean,
years, have you felt that?
I've had the time the last couple of years. I've got a sax. I like the sound of sax, but I've not got the time to go. And I did try and buy one in the shop, but didn't have the one I wanted, you know. And I didn't want to learn it properly. I just want to keep blowing into it till I found something. So I was into doing it like that, you know, because I don't want to play it all, like jazz style. I actually like sax and rhythm instruments where you kind of
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So that'd be my idea of perfect sax. Yeah.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
mean,
I
because it
don't.
does. Yeah, not did we have the I need to learn this instrument to perform with you, whatever. Just for yourself, like, that's kind of fun. Just I'm inspired
Oh
again.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally, just for me, just sat there, just playing it because it's hypnotic, isn't it? Like I'll sit there play guitar for a couple of hours. You know, nothing's good. Just because I like playing it. You know, it's again, it's the harmony, isn't it? The harmony and the chaos. It's you and the guitar, isn't it?
Well, and I think that's what it is. I think that you have that in you, and that's a chip you have in you. To keep creating, to keep doing stuff. I think one of the
Yeah.
bummed out things for me is like I had to say, but I did an interview. I interviewed Fish, former
Oh
Merlian.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
had him on twice. I know he doesn't do as many interviews, but for some reason we got along good. We did some great interviews, and he gave me like was probably one of his last podcast interviews probably that he did, and
Yeah.
he's like he's done with everything. Like I don't know if he wants to even turn the radio on the way that interview went at the end. Like he's so burnt out from the end. I mean, he was appreciative, but I'm like nothing. You're not going to keep a ukulele on the wall or something for yourself. He's like, I'm done,
I know
so
he'll
done.
be back. He'll come back. I mean, after 2 years, if you walk past guitar shop, walk in, pick up an instrument. 2 minutes, he'll write a thing. Go, that sounds pretty good. I can think of some words for that. And that's the trouble. You keep getting drawn back in again.
Well, that's the hard part. I hear like even for himself, I'm like he's gonna sell it into a farm or whatever. But I'm like, there's a certain point where you got to hear it in the back of your mind, and maybe I don't know how you can just turn that off. I mean, I guess, or maybe it's just sad, or you just I can respect it, but to me, it just seems like, oh wow, that just seems like such a solid no. You know what I mean? That I'm so done with music, and I didn't want to play an instrument. It's
Oh,
crazy,
he will be right now. Yeah, but you just don't know where he's going to go next, do you? That's the
right? But to
thing.
me, the question was, I'm like, do you think you'll never do it for yourself? I'm not even asking as a
It's
fan. I want you to be happy. I'm just saying, you don't think you're gonna just want to pick up something just for fun alone?
no, he won't at the moment, but there'll just be a curveball. You'll go
It
and
has
meet
to be.
somebody. Somebody said, "Come meet us in this guitar shop," for a cup of tea or something. He'll go in there and he'll come back in and draw him back in, or he may actually manage to not come back in again.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. John, I want to thank you for taking some time today. This has, been a real pleasure. Definitely a special pleasure because it's always great talking to different musicians. But to you, you've been besides being a musician, some of the show I've enjoyed also. So to kind of just go back and forth is also and share a love of the Beatles is fun.
Oh yeah,
You know,
oh yeah. Likewise, well, I've enjoyed it. It's been great. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want people to follow you. Go to follow you. Like I said, all the links to everybody as usual underneath. Subscribe. Check out his books. I'm guilty. I'm gonna be. I've got 2 books now to read of yours. I'll put the links for your website. Great website. I'm getting inspired by artists I've probably drawn and some artists I've interviewed because of you.
yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Um,
Yeah,
because that's part of the journey. I'm just like my show. I'm just the facilitator. The show's not even
yeah,
named
yeah,
after me. Laughing Monkey Music was a made up word. I like laughing. I like monkeys and music. I put it together. You know, so
yeah.
it sounds good. The syllables, laughing monkey music, Led Zeppelin. I was doing
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because there was a videotape of the band Mother Love Bone VHS tape back in the 90s or whatever, right? And the singer who passed away from drugs, Andrew Wood, he says, Mother Love Bone. And he was like naming all these bands like that with the 3 syllables, Led Zeppelin. So when I put this show together, I'm like trying to be funny about it because I think the internet is just ridiculous. I think the world's ridiculous. And I'm like, what's funny that I can put out there? Now the name's out there as a made up word. But if you Google it,
Yeah,
it's out there in like probably 20, 30 pages popping up. Like it's just ridiculous.
yeah, yeah.
But it's part of the adventure of sharing music with people. And to me, be able to share this with you has been extra special today. I want to thank you
Yeah,
as a fan.
thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully, maybe down the road we can do this again. And
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.